At a time when uranium share prices are on the rise, I wanted to catch up with the CEO of the Coalition for Conservation, Christina Talako, to see if the trend that I'm seeing with green politicians starting to support the idea of nuclear as a part of the solution for climate change, to see if that was actually carried over in this conference. It could be good for share prices like Paladin's. Let's go and see what Christina Talako is saying. Well, I'm talking to Christina Talako, who's the CEO of the Coalition for Conservation, and she's just been at the COP28 conference in Dubai. And I'm really interested to see and hear what has actually gone on that might have a big impact on many of the important parts of our life. Thanks for joining us, Christina.
It's a pleasure.
Can you tell us about the Coalition for Conservation? What's the origins of it? What is its goals?
We're an environmental charity registered in Australia and more recently also registered in the US. And the goal is to really bridge policymaking with environmental expertise. So what we do is we assist legislators, providing them with reliable data on climate and energy facts, and also putting them in touch with think tanks, experts around the world and other legislators so that they can make better decisions when it comes to climate policy. So we do a lot of events during the year. We organize a big climate conference in Australia where we bring international speakers. And we also take legislators to COPs. For the last 3 years, we've been taking part at the different COPs around the world. And this year, we took a big delegation of MPs to COP28 in Dubai.
How would you differentiate your group to a lot of the very well-known, often very outspoken groups that, in a sense, harass governments to get on board with climate change policy? How do you differ from them, do you think?
Well, we've taken a position that there's plenty of environmental groups that come up with criticism rather than helpful advice. So what we do is we try to establish what areas of policy that are deficient or lagging behind. And then we work together with legislators by providing, as I mentioned, center-right or more pragmatic solutions that are usually free market or market-based, that still promote economic growth, rather than just promote solutions that are just tax-based or in a way, those that impede growth. So for that reason, a lot of legislators, they actually enjoy the role that we have taken in that space, because a lot of them don't have enough opportunities to liaise with international experts and other agencies that are doing a lot in the area of climate change. And for them to bridge this and create this unity in collaboration internationally, finding other sort of like-minded experts is very important, so that it's information that they can trust. It doesn't come from the left or right side of politics. It's pragmatic and it comes from very reliable sources, and that's what we do.
Do you have traction with both sides of politics in Australia, both the coalition and Labor?
So traditionally, we've been working closer to the coalition, and that's because we've found that they were not willing to sign the net zero commitments. There was a little bit more difficulty uniting, I suppose, the National Party with the Liberal Party aspirations. And so our work was to find the common ground and find areas where there's really the commonalities will produce better policies. But having said that, we are taking a much more bipartisan approach, because we believe that to really achieve what we want in the climate sphere, we need bipartisanship. We have to move away from picking technologies, from picking political sides, and we have to go past the political cycles to be able to think more long-term what is best for Australia in terms of energy, environment, and agricultural policy as well, which is really important for Australia. So we've been working with all sides of politics at the moment, but we definitely have given a lot more support in terms of providing information and data to the coalition so far.
Okay, tell us about COP28. What were the big messages that you took away from there?
Well, I believe one thing that struck me this time is that it's been a more pragmatic COP. So most COPs that I've attended have been very ideology driven. As you know, that's a lot of aspirations, but very little practical solutions. And I think this time we've seen with the fossil fuel narratives that came out at the very end of COP, that they've taken a more pragmatic approach. It's very hard for so many countries involved, more than 130, to sit at the table and be able to sign up to the same things at COP, especially when they're in different levels of development, different levels of industrialization. And I think it was a good COP in terms of coming more to the middle and being able to really understand that the world still heavily relies on fossil fuels. Unfortunately, 80% of all the energy still comes from fossil fuels globally. And what we need to do is to be able to include the industries that are polluting in the conversation in a pragmatic way and help them decarbonize as well. So I think in that sense, there was a lot of a good sense of collaboration and a willingness to collaborate, which was key to this COP. And I think in every encounter, every meeting we participated, it was a willingness to exchange information, to learn from each other, and to really include businesses, include the corporate sector to facilitate the transfer of knowledge or climate-friendly technologies, which we understand is very important to help the less developed countries. And I think there was really quite a big support for renewables again, which is very good, because there was, they're talking about tripling renewable energy. And this time there was also an understanding that we need all types of technologies, including nuclear. Nuclear will be a big part of the decarbonization in many countries. It is already a big part in France and many other European and Canada and the US. But it hasn't been supported in many COPs. And I think in this COP, there was an acknowledgement of the role of nuclear and the role of base load in the equation. So that was an important COP in that sense, that it's a sort of more inclusive COP, I felt.
Yeah. It seems to me, you said previous ones were very ideological. It seemed like you're saying that this one was entertaining the idea of realism, that you have to be realistic about how quickly we can phase out fossil fuels. Was that the kind of message that you got?
Yeah, I think the general recommendation was more a holistic way or a technology-driven approach, so more sort of agnostic as to how we get there. It's important to include all sorts of technologies existent and also continue to obviously invest in future technologies that may come eventually. But there's more of there's still a sense of urgency, and there's undeniable in the conversations at COP. But there's this realization that we must include everyone, we must include all industries. We can't just demonize the fossil fuels industry. They have to be part of the solution. Without them, we can't really decarbonize. And there's also, I suppose, a realization also that how we get there highly depends on market forces, on the financial support, and how undeveloped countries that we are telling them don't use fossil fuels when most of us have developed our countries using fossil fuels. How do we support them in that trajectory with a better plan? So there's a lot more in the global stock take, I suppose. It's been reviewed usually that this progress is not fast enough. So we know that we're not getting there fast enough. So what are the levers and what can we do in terms of our contributions to assist more globally, not just thinking about themselves unilaterally, how we're decarbonizing, but what are we going to do to help other economies that haven't reached the same level of industrialization to move away from fossil fuels without damaging their potential for growth as well, or their potential for development, because it's important for them to develop as well. So yeah, I believe this time was a bit more of a pragmatic COP than the ones I've seen before. And, we're still pushing for timelines, it's obvious, but the realization that we need all industries involved, all technologies involved, and every country to do the best they can. Yeah.
Now, what are the key dates or related goals that come out of it? Are we still saying zero emissions by 2030 or 2050? Well, what is the new date that we have to focus on?
Well, a lot of the countries, as you are aware, especially developed countries, have signed up net zero by 2050. Australia, the delegation I took, it's quite clear to me we're not going back on that pledge. We're going to do everything we can to get there. But in terms of timelines, the issue is developing roadmaps. It's very well to put it, timelines and pledges and targets. But what we've seen is that when you don't have a roadmap or a specific plan internally for your country to get there, then it becomes just an aspiration. And what I think that was quite clear this COP is that to achieve these milestones and targets, you have to establish these interim goals and the interim plans to contribute to the overall long-term objectives. So we need to foster a stronger sense of accountability. And this is what COPs are all about, obviously. But it's not until 2025 that all NDCs will be reviewed. So it wasn't really at this COP. So I think it's what was clear is that the progress hasn't been fast enough for most countries. The next NDC is only due 2025, so it gives us 20 years to review everything we're doing internally and what we expect from each country to boost their actions and commitments. And also, I think that in terms of moving forward, we're trying to establish, for example, in Australia, we have a fantastic target and we want to get there. But Australia is generally seen as not having the appropriate design internally to get there. So we need a more transparent, a more unequivocally robust program to get to our 2030, which we will achieve, but the 2035 target, and then every 5 years to be able to produce a plan and review our plans to see how we're actually reaching these targets realistically, rather than just think about 2050 and in the interim not really have a proper roadmap to get there in all sectors of industry.
Yeah. Did Australia cop a bit of criticism for that?
Look, I think that Australia always cops up a bit of criticism because we're still exporting coal and there's other areas of industry that we have to decarbonize. Our mining industry and steel and cement has to decarbonize. But I think overall, there's a sense that Australia has signed so many of the pledges. We're part of the methane, we're part of the tripling renewables. I would love to see Australia also entering into the nuclear wave of development as well, which will be very important in the future. But I think overall, there's countries doing a lot worse than we are, but there's countries doing a lot better. The UK, the US, and Canada, they seem to be putting together a more robust plan, a more transparent one, and giving us a proper idea or a roadmap of what they're actually trying to do in each of these sectors in terms of also lining up finance, lining up government support, and the investment side of things. And I think Australia can definitely improve in many ways in various sectors of industry here.
What about our role as a global leader of sustainable agriculture and agricultural tech? Are we recognised for being good in that particular space?
So I like that you touched on agriculture, because a big role of what we're doing with Coalition for Conservation is we've partnered in a way with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to position Australia as a global leader on ag tech and sustainable agriculture, because our farmers here have dealt with incredible climatic change in the last couple of years, and because they don't get the European subsidies and the American subsidies from government, they have to do things in a way that is way more efficient than other farmers around the world. And we have fantastic solutions in so many areas of agriculture, of livestock, of crops. And there's so much that we can share with the world. So part of our program this time at COP was to really engage with African nations and Pacific nations to create a platform for exchange of technologies, to exchange our practices so that they can make use of the practices that we've already developed here and technologies we've already developed here. I think Australia has a massive role supporting so many other nations that can be future food baskets, like Tanzania, Kenya, and so many countries in the Pacific as well. And what we have to do, as I mentioned to you, which is one of the biggest focuses at this COP, is really collaboration, is really to not reinvent the wheel, is to be able to transfer this knowledge, technology, and even policy modelings, because Australia has good policies in agriculture that we can share. So we have a massive role in all COPs and during all the periods of the year to be able to exchange technology with and good practices with other countries that we have learned. And we'll have to continue to learn here too, and learn from other countries as well.
All right, Christina, thanks for joining us. If people want to know more about the Coalition for Conservation, what's the website?
Oh, it's coalitionforconservation.com.au. Very easy.
Okay, fine. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here, Peter. Thanks.